All right, so hi everybody. My name is Dana Forrest. I am a licensed clinical social worker and the owner of Swell Therapy. I am an entrepreneur. I started Swell Therapy last year in 2023. I am a supervisor in the emergency psychiatric services at Southern Ocean Medical Center. I have been doing mental health work for the last 14 years. I was a Peace Corps volunteer. I'll share a little bit about that today. And I'll share how I named my program after some really inspiring Fijian time. I am an experiential facilitator. I spent a lot of years running a ropes course programming. I ran a teen outreach program where we use a lot of experiential theory. I'm also a surfer. So I wanted to share with you a little bit about my time in Fiji. So this was a really transformational time in my life. You can see here a nice picture of Fijian culture here. The guys are doing the grog ceremony. The bottom left picture here is me doing a training with some kids. Most of our trainings took place in a church. So this is me on a weeknight, just talking to some kids about life. And I also did a program for the women's national rugby team. When I lived in Fiji, they have you in the Peace Corps train with a host family. So for the first 3 months, you live with them. I lived in a village. Our village name was Vanuandina, which means the true land. We got to live with the family and we learned their language. I learned how to speak Fijian. I learned how to cook their food and all of their customs and way of life. And what I learned from Fijians is that they're the happiest people that you'll ever meet. We would joke with them and say, oh, when we're done our service and come visit us in the United States, and they would say, no, that's okay. And I would say, you don't want to come to the United States and see us and learn how I live? And they say, oh, we're the richest people in the world. People from all over the world, the wealthiest people come here to Fiji. So this must be really, really special. The word Bula in Fiji, a lot of people are familiar with the Hawaiian word aloha, and it's very similar. So Bula is a word that means life. And when you say Bula to people in Fijian, it means you're wishing them good health. That is one of the foundational things that inspired my curriculum of surf therapy. So I'm going to walk through a little bit of the philosophy and research behind my Bula model. I just want to say that I didn't create surf therapy in itself, but I created my own program. Izzy Paskowitz is a famous surfer. He started surf therapy for people with autism, and he travels the globe with world-class surfers. So for me, my surf therapy program is something that's accessible to people here in New Jersey. I have people that travel, they live in town here on LBI or in Manahawkin, but I also have people that travel 2 hours away to come. So let me start. Eastern Body, Western Mind. So this is a book that was really big for me in my learning as a therapist. I did a training by a psychologist who worked for the VA. And she shared this book with us. She worked with people who had chronic pain. So Anodea Judith writes this book, and she gets really into spirituality, energy, the chakra system. And in her book, she talks about this concept. It's called the body of armor. She gets into a mind, body, and spirit approach to healing. She promotes that we have to get inside of ourselves to do the work. And in psychology, we call this, an internal versus external locus of control, right? You talk to people as a therapist and you understand that sometimes people are focusing on, my mom does this, my dad does this, or my husband does this, and you can't control other people, right? You have to learn to control yourself, your reactions, your own emotions. So this theory of the body of armor basically says that we all deal with stress. Your emotions live in your muscles and in your skeleton. And if you get emotional about something and you don't let it go, it lives in you. People create stress patterns in their body, and over time it accumulates. So one way you can let it go is through movement. Another way is through meditation, right? Working through something. So the psychologist that taught us about this book and introduced me to the body of armor would say that people who have this body of armor have chronic back pain, stomach aches, migraines, right? And I find it to be so true in therapy. People that have these somatic complaints often have this stored trauma or depression or anxiety that they just can't work through. So over time, I've really started to research this concept. Another major concept for my model is the science of awe. Awe started really being studied by psychologists in the mental health field, but people have been studying this for a long time. You know, you can look at philosophers, you can look at spiritual guides, right? Religions, they're looking at awe. When you think of awe, I want you to think of nature, right? That's the biggest source of awe. So if you've ever been to the Grand Canyon, if you have seen the Northern Lights, if you've gone to Europe and you've seen the buildings there and understand your perspective in history. So UC Berkeley put together a major publication where they compiled a bunch of research. And these are the things that they're saying that awe impacts. It increases the connectedness. It changes your perception of time. It increases accommodation, right? So this is really your story. In therapy, I do a lot of narrative therapy. What's your story? Is it true for you? Is it helping you? Do you need to change your story? And people's flexibility in being able to change their story and their narrative, it'll change your life. So that cognitive accommodation is huge with awe. It changes your mood, increases life satisfaction, increases humility. And it's interesting in the research with humility, it's both the perception by friends and self-perception increases. So not only do you see an increase in humility in yourself, but other people also recognize it in you. There's a decreased need for materialism, increase in spiritual feelings, pro-social effects, kindness, generosity. People start acting more kind. People start acting more generous. And for those of you familiar with Maslow, right? Maslow's hierarchy of needs, one of his teachings, he actually talks about awe. And he calls awe experiences peak experiences in life. And I think it's really true. It really, in that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? That top piece there is what we're all searching for. When you can get into a situation where you have that awe experience, that's a peak experience in life. Awe gives us a cascade of positive emotions, a deep respect and reverence for source of life. A lot of people start to get connected to spirituality, right? We ask really big questions. We start to contemplate the beauty and the mystery of life. We start a shift of, you know, worries and anxieties and welcome mystery. There's a theory called the small self. And I'll explain a little bit about how this relates to mental health. So in the mental health field right now, they are talking about depression, and they're realizing that the things they thought they knew about depression may not apply to everybody. So there are people that have what's called treatment-resistant depression. So this treatment-resistant depression, big medicine is starting to get into things like to create an altered sense of consciousness. So you may have heard of ketamine treatments, psilocybin, psychedelics. What those things do is it creates an out-of-body experience, or that's the goal. When people are depressed, they can't see themselves. They can't see their own problems. And I think it's important to understand that you need something to get outside of yourself. For me, I'm not promoting the use of psilocybin. I'm not promoting the use of ketamine. Those things may be for some people. What I'm offering is a natural way to experience awe. They would do these studies with people, and after they experienced awe, right, like this beautiful picture of this guy surfing in the mountain, if you asked him a before and after, they would give you a scale of circles from little to big, and they would ask you to rank yourself. So before somebody experienced awe, they would see themselves bigger. Afterwards, they would see themselves as smaller. So what this is telling us is people are starting to see outside of themselves. They're getting a shift in perspective, getting away from ego. And so it's a huge deal for the mental health community to find ways to treat these big questions about what do you do with somebody who's depressed. Like I said earlier, I didn't invent the concept of surf therapy in itself. I'm just creating a model that really works and can be extrapolated for most people. The military started studying surf therapy. This is years ago, so these are cool pictures. These are from the Vietnam War, and it just goes to show you that, you know, people use the resources that they have available. And these are guys that are blowing off steam at war and using surfing as a way to help themselves. Jocko Willink, I'm a big fan. He writes a lot of books. He's a retired Navy SEAL. He's also a surfer, but he talks about fear and bravery and courage. There are a lot of people that talk about being scared of surfing. And my encouragement to you is to follow Jocko Willink's advice. We want to step towards bravery. We want to step towards courage. The military is really a place where these foundational treatment modalities really get researched and explored. So many of you have probably heard of EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, and prolonged exposure therapy. These are two big staple treatments, evidence-based treatments in the mental health community. If you have trauma, these things really, really work. The military has been studying at the Naval Medical Center since 2008. I'm hopeful that they will publish soon and become an actual evidence-based treatment modality. I wanted to share with you, I'm going to play a clip next. There's a movie called Resurface. There's a man who developed a surf therapy program for veterans. It's a pretty powerful clip.
You have zero control over the ocean. The only thing that you have control over is your attitude and your actions.
In the United States, current rate is 22 veterans kill themselves every 24 hours.
I went to Iraq and I came back a completely different person. You start thinking about the firefights you've been in, the dead bodies you've seen. Excuse me. I've been on just about every drug on the market. I figured I'd be okay with dying. Surfing, that was the biggest thing on my bucket list. I was gonna go surfing, go home, and commit suicide. When I caught that wave, it wasn't death and destruction and hell. The ocean is the one place I can go to for peace.
I started Operation Surf to take a group of veterans surfing. It became clear to me what my purpose was. It's rough, okay? Don't give up. No.
Surfing is medicine. It helps them describe themselves with a new story.
Not only changed my life, it saved my life.
So if you've never seen that movie, it's on Netflix. It's only about 27 minutes. It's really, really powerful. I encourage you all to watch it. So this program in particular does work with veterans. The program that I run on LBI is open to anybody. One of the concepts for me with my Bula model is really entrainment. So body, mind, and spirit. When people are fully aligned, your brain and your body works well together, your nervous system. Your mind, you get into a flow state. We get energy moving. You get out of your head and away from your ego. We focus on the now. We understand with meditation that people are able to create movement. When you have challenge, you find purpose in meeting. I wanted to share a story with you. Years ago, it was 2018, my brother and I were training for a marathon and a half marathon. And if you've ever done marathon training before, you understand how hard it is. I'm a firm believer that when you challenge yourself, you find out who you really are. So we got to a place in our marathon training where we were way out over our skis. Every week in marathon training, you add on another mile. And for a lot of people, that extra mile is the furthest you've ever gone. And I had done 5Ks, right? Three mile runs, things like that. And so I was in my comfort zone with running that kind of race. But we got to a week in our training where it was mile 8. So we're both running together. It's a hot day, you know, not enough sleep, and you get to mile 7, right? And last week in our training, we ran 7 miles. So this week our goal is 8, and it's the furthest I've ever run. So my watch literally goes off and dings, okay, you're at mile 7. So at this point, our mindset is, okay, now we have to push, right? I've never done this before. We start begrudging, you know, joking, I don't want to do it. I don't want to go any further. Do I have to keep going? And just as my watch goes off, I look over and there's a man walking out of his house. He has one leg. He has a prosthetic leg. He's wearing shorts. And he has the biggest smile on his face, and he says, "Good morning." And he has a US Marine Corps t-shirt on. And my brother and I looked at each other, and in that moment, it was such a shift in mindset of, okay, it gave me some perspective on what is really a challenge, right? Like, here I am, I just need to be grateful in this moment for my life and all that I have. So 1 more mile is really not that hard. It's not enough, but that was such a moment for me. We actually, we started making a lot of 8 Mile jokes, right? The Eminem song after that movie. So every week thereafter in our marathon training, we would blast that song right before we started. So I like to share that story with people because I think it just really helps to exemplify, like, your mindset really means everything. So back to surfing in the mind here, consciousness. So there's altered states of consciousness. Meditation is one of the altered states of consciousness that people can have, and surfing absolutely taps into that. People with anxiety, they get an increase in fight or flight response. What surfing does is it demands your attention, and so it decreases this fight or flight feeling for people. It brings you into the present moment, which is an excellent treatment modality for anxiety. One of the things that really helps people with anxiety is creating ritual and community. Surfing, it's everything from as small as the paddle strokes, right? It's that something done in repetition, right? It's predictable. You know that you have to keep paddling, to showing up every week at the same spot, right? We're creating a ritual, which actually decreases anxiety in itself. Surfing can create a lot of deep meaning. I know people that started surfing and found a relationship with God. They got in touch with their spirituality. We see that awe again, but people start to make meaning from challenge. I've challenged myself in a lot of ways in life, right? I just told you that marathon, half marathon training story. But when you take leaps of faith into challenge, it really, really connects you with a deep sense of purpose. I have a friend that talks about surfing as you are stepping back into the food chain. It demands that you deal with your own mortality. When we lose somebody in our life, it makes us deal with mortality. And so there is a connection in a deep spiritual way with surfing, where it connects you with those things. You begin to ask life's big questions. So people with trauma, as I talked about with the body of armor, it lives in our nervous system. So sometimes people will beat themselves up and they'll say, I just can't stop thinking about it. I'm overthinking. I can't let it go. And for me, I think they need movement. You know, it's not their fault that they can't just let it go. I think you need to move your body. Your body carries this emotional memory in it. And so we work with entrainment that gets the flow of the mind, the body, and the spirit. And instead of walking around with this tension pattern, you start to have some flexibility in your spine, some flexibility in your nervous system. And when you get that flexibility in your nervous system, you can think at higher levels. All of a sudden, people start to get this aha moment where you'll be surfing and you'll be sitting out looking at the horizon. And all of a sudden, you just get this, oh my God, that's it, right? Like, I have been struggling with my relationship with my mom for 30 years. And all of a sudden, I just let it go. And it's just amazing to see for people what that flexibility in your nervous system and decreasing that stress level, it creates room to think these big thoughts. It's also really impactful for your physical state. I don't know anybody that surfs that it doesn't affect your sleep and appetite. In surf therapy and other research studies, they talk about insomnia. Surfing can decrease insomnia. Personally, as a surfer, the days I go out and surf are the most relaxed nights of sleep I get. I think I'm just so exhausted that it just helps with that. I'm also really hungry afterwards, right? All that physical activity creates that sleep and appetite function. So just sharing with you some photos here, some people that I've taken out, seen some tremendous improvement and progress for people through surf therapy. So just wanted to give you some specifics here. So my surf therapy program is going to be held on Long Beach Island this summer. Our 8-week program begins June 24th. Participants, when they sign up, they'll do a formal intake with me. It's a therapy intake. I'm going to learn about them, what's going on for them. Most people that sign up for surf therapy are people that have something on their mind, right? You have a big question, you don't know where to go with this thing, and it's you know, it could be anything from right now, I just had this big question, to, you know what, I want to deal with something that I haven't been able to work through or haven't been able to move through. I've started the program at 9 years old, and I cohort people by age and then by circumstance. So if you're a 45-year-old mom, you're not going to be in a program with 9-year-olds. Participants will come out for 2 hours once a week during that 8-week program. You will meet with me. We'll go out and surf. I have a team of surf instructors, and after an hour of surfing, we'll sit on the beach and we'll do group therapy. We'll talk about life, what's going on for you. If you're new to surfing, you're welcome to join us. I have all the boards. I have learner boards, soft tops, to create a safe place for people to learn how to surf. If you're an experienced surfer or somebody that's tried it in the past, well, you're welcome to come out. It's really for all age groups. You can find us on social media here. In terms of sign up, you know, we have an early bird special. I'm trying to make it accessible for as many people as I can. So if you have questions about that, let me know. People can go right to my website, swelltherapy.org, to sign up. I know our time is really valuable and precious, so I really mean it when I say thank you for spending your time this morning with me.